Hey folks, Mr. Hanson here. I want to walk you guys through creating a design for this course challenge exercise. So this is the final challenge exercise for the design for manufacturing learning pathway. And so here I want to walk you guys through the actual design aspect of this course challenge exercise. Here I've already got my file loaded from the Autodesk learning pathway, and it's just a bunch of components. They are not joined together. They're not assembled or anything. So before I even start designing the actual part that we need for this, which is going to be a linkage that connects this handle to this green piston, I'm going to go ahead and join this so I have everything located in their correct places. The first thing, anytime you do any type of joint or assembly work, I would take the base, whatever your base piece is, uh, right click that and click the ground option. That'll fix that in place and keep everything from moving around and let you kind of simulate motion as you add additional joints to this. Um, let's take a look. I mean, everything's kind of located sort of where it needs to be with respect to the other parts of this design. So it should be pretty simple to use as-built joints in order to actually create the simulated motion between these different parts. So I'm going to click as-built joint. I'm going to start with the handle and the base. So I'm going to take the base and I'm going to attach the handle. Now, obviously, this handle needs to rotate around this pivot point. So I want to change my type of motion to revolute. And I just need to select like a circle that this is going to rotate relative to. So I'm just going to select that outside circle because that's pretty easy. It'll run through and check out the range of motion. Click OK, and there we go. I've got a handle. Now, if you get things messed up as you're moving things around, you can always go up to the position tool and revert back to the original position of everything. Let me add the next joint. I'm going to do a joint between the green piston and the blue base. So I'm going to assemble. Again, I'm going to do an as-built joint. The base and the piston. And this is not going to be a revolute mate. This will be a slider mate. I want to select a face that is parallel to the direction of motion. And so that little circular face on the back end should give you the correct type of motion. And so now that slides in and out, revert position, and one more joint between this red thing and this green thing. So let me go to assemble. Once again, grabbing an as-built joint. Here, it's going to be a little different. This type of joint where I've got sort of a sphere ball inserted into a spherical hole or slot, that's called a ball joint. And all we need to do is select some type of spherical object. You should be able to highlight and select that green sphere at the end, and that'll create a ball joint. And that's just a joint that can move along 3 different axes. All right, so that's all for joining these basic components. Now, of course, there's nothing connecting this handle to this green piston. That is what we are trying to create with this particular design. So let's start doing some design. Anytime you are working with components and you want to create something new, it's always a good idea to create a new component for you to put your new part in. So I'm going to click New Component. Standard component. Let's call it linkage. So there I got my new linkage component. That linkage component is now active and it's sort of hidden everything from view, making it slightly translucent, which is good because that'll actually let me make some sketches pretty easily. All right, I'm going to start with this design. I'm going to sketch on one of my default planes here. I'm going to start my, you know what? That's silly. Let me start directly on the face of that handle. That'll work. Yeah, that'll give me access to this hole, which I essentially want to connect to this little hole here. Now you'll notice this little hole here, I won't be able to grab the center of it because this doesn't know that that's actually a circle. It's a circle that's embedded on this cylindrical piston. So in order to actually be able to reference that circle, I'm going to need to go to my project tool and click at that cylinder. And if you zoom in, you'll see that purple circle is now projected onto my sketch. Click OK. And now I can actually connect things. So now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create, a slightly bigger circle here, slightly bigger circle there. I'm going to make sure that these are centered correctly. So I want this circle to be concentric. Try it again. Oh, I got a better idea. We need them to be centered. Why don't we just use an offset? There we go. Let's make that offset, not 50. Let's try 5. Let me do the same thing over here. Grabbing this circle. Let's offset that by 5 millimeters. I'm going to connect these by some arcs. Choose my 3-point arc tool. I'm just trying to connect those two circles. Let me add a line down the middle. Let's see. Let's put a point at the center so it's easy to reference. I'm actually going to take this line and make that a construction line. All right, let me make this little arc here tangent. Wrong line. Control Z. Grab my tangent tool, make this little arc here tangent to my circle. Looks like we already got that constraint. And then I'm going to use my mirror tool to take that arc, flip it across. There we go. Flip it across that line. Let me make sure that I've got this line attached to the circle using the coincident tool. There we go. And I'm just going to add my tangent constraint back. All right, that's good enough. I can even go in here and trim this a little bit because I don't actually need these inside edges because this is all going to be one part in my design. All right, click Finish Sketch. And there I've got the basics for my linkage. So let me select these two parts. Let me just do a little bit of extruding. I'm going to pick, let's say, 2 millimeter thickness. There we go. So that's created my linkage. All righty. Let's see. If I'm making this part actually work, I think I'm going to need an axle going through from one side to the other. Let me make that as part of this linkage assembly. So let me create another sketch. I'm just going to create it directly on the surface here. Use my project tool to make sure I've got these circles in my sketch. There we go. Actually, you know what? I'm going to save that for later. Let me go ahead and create. Let me go ahead and create this linkage that's going to be on the other side just for simulation purposes. I'm going to need to be able to reflect this across the center axis, but this design is not actually centered. So I'm going to go to Construct. I'm going to choose the mid-plane option, and I want to create a plane in the middle of this design. So I'm going to select two opposite surfaces, and that'll give me a new plane right smack dab in the middle. Then I can real simply use my mirror tool, take this linkage, select my mirror plane. I'm going to turn that, well, it's actually under object type. I want to make that a new component. That way I've got two of those components in my design. Click OK. And there I've got a copied version of that linkage. And so I've got both linkages, easy peasy. Let me go back up here and activate my clamp assembly real quick. That's looking pretty good. Let me hide that construction plane. I don't need that at the moment. And let me create an axle that'll go through between these two pins, or these two linkages. So again, I'm going to create another new component. I'm going to create this using a sketch on this side. No, I don't even need to add anything to the sketch. I just want those two circles. So let me extrude that. And to make sure this goes all the way through and connects with the linkage on the other side, I'm going to change my extent type to 2object. I'm going to select the surface of the other linkage. And that way that little pin will go all the way through and connect my two linkages. Let me rename this component real quick. We'll rename that, call it pin. All right. So there I've got my two linkages. I've got axles connecting them. Let me go back up here and activate my whole assembly. Now, obviously, that's not connected yet. So let's actually start connecting this. I'm going to hide my linkages, and I'm going to actually delete one of these. I got a better idea. Back into this extrude. I'm actually just going to extrude one of these pins. There we go. Okay, because what I really want to do is have this be essentially the same part. So I'm going to, what am I going to do? Let's create a copy of this linkage. And that'll be the one we put up there. Okay, so this little pin needs to be fixed inside each of these axle holes. Ooh, I got a better idea. So let me grab my assembly tool. Let me grab the as-built joint. We're just going to do a fixed rigid joint between, not that one, this first pin and the green piston. So that'll be wedged in there. Let me do the same thing. I'll have to do this with a joint. Yeah, between that and that. Let me try going to assemble, duplicate with joints. Let me do that. All right, never mind. I want to get this pin in here, but I want it to be actually attached to this handle part. Let me add a new joint origin. We'll do between two faces. Let's see. Snap it along there. So that'll give me a center snap point that I can use to attach this pin when I move it and create a copy of it. All right, there we go. Let me again do my joint, since this is not in the correct location, and snap it from that center to that center. All right. I missed that a little bit. Let's try that again. Let's see if I can get the right snap connectors. It can sometimes be a little bit tricky to get the right connector points. Again, let me add another joint origin. Grab between two faces, place my joint origin between those two things. It looks like they're not perfectly circular based on the design there, so it's not quite treating that as a cylinder. All right. Once again, joint. Grab that joint. And that looks like it's actually lined up correctly. All right, nice. We've got two pins. Now we can create these little linkages to revolve around those pins. And so let me do my assembly, as built joint around the axle there. I'm going to make this a revolute. Around that circle there. Do the same thing between the linkage and that lower pin. We'll rotate around that. I lost my rigid joint between the pin and the cylinder. So let me go add that again. That rigid. There we go. And now I've got a functioning linkage between the handle and between the piston. So I can do the same thing on the other side. I can use my reflect tool to reflect that over as well, and then do the same process to create my circular joints. Especially now that I have that pin in place, should be a piece of cake. In practice, I'd probably have to add some type of end cap or like screw mechanism or something to secure that axle in place. But for the purposes of this exercise, we've created something that links the handle to the piston of the toggle clamp, and that'll let me actually, make that toggle clamp function. So I'm going to stop this recording here. In the next video, I will take this part and actually turn it into a manufactured part using the manufacturing workspace up on the left-hand menu.